Marcus Fava Neves, University of Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yep.
But you're also very heavily involved with the business world and agroeconomics.
Yeah, that's my day-to-day life.
You know, a lot of people don't understand what agroeconomics means. Put it in terms of how you use it, what would you say it means?
We should understand agriculture as an integrated business. You have, in a very easy way for people to perceive, when a farmer is producing, he had to buy some seeds, he had to buy machinery, he had to buy crop protection. These companies have to buy some other inputs to produce these inputs that the farmer is using. Then the farmer sells his production, it goes to an industry that processes this production. This industry, like the poultry, pork industry, the milk industry, they also buy other things like packaging, like services, like electricity, a lot of things. Then this goes to the supermarket, goes to other distribution systems, goes to restaurants, and goes to the final consumer. So that's agribusiness, when you see all these things in an integrated way, working as a chain.
How does South Africa differ from, say, the Brazilian agriculture market?
Well, first of all, it's in terms of the resources available. Since Brazil is a bigger country, it has a larger capacity of soils producing and to be brought to production. Brazil also has in terms of water, although the water in the country is not well distributed, but the rainfall is a little bit bigger than what we have here. So some of the natural conditions of the country make the country more competitive. Then you have the business people, and we are almost the same because you have a wonderful business being done here in several food chains as we have there in Brazil. But when you try to isolate the country, I would tell you that the major difference is that we have more resources available, and this will be used now to produce to China and to India and to these highly consuming markets.
How important is that Chinese market becoming to Brazil?
Well, if you look at the exports of Brazil, China went from almost zero 10, 12 years ago to the largest buyer of Brazilian products today. It's by far bigger than Europe, the US, and it's where the exports are moving, mostly soybeans, other grains, meat. The capacity of production in China will not face the demand. So I used to call this the food bridge, which is food being produced in Brazil towards the Chinese consumer. Now it's not only China, I'm also worried with India.
How important, and I ask this question with a hidden meaning, are the farming, or is the farming community to the Brazilian government, if we match it with the South African situation?
It's the most important, guys. And finally, the government, the Brazilian government recognized this. Brazil as a country, as an export-import nation, is not performing well because our trade balance is going down. Amount of services, amount of travelings that people do outside Brazil, tourism, imports of products. So the trade balance is like around $15 billion surplus and going down. When you separate agribusiness in Brazil, exports $100 billion and imports only $15 billion. So of this surplus of 15, 85 is agribusiness that is supplying. So you can imagine, if you remove agribusiness from Brazil, our trade balance goes from plus 15 to minus 70. And then you have inflation, you have the country will break.
How does that compare to South Africa? Are we in similar circumstances?
I don't have the exact figures of South Africa, but I see as South Africa, agribusiness in South Africa, mostly what you do in fruits, in grapes, in wine, in grain, as a surplus business. But I should check this better. But when you look at the potential of growth, definitely it's going to be a surplus business.
A tenuous question here. As you're well aware, 30% of all imported poultry into South Africa comes from Brazil. Good market for Brazil. But South African farmers are not happy with that. They want a tariff brought in against that. How do you feel? Do you think that is the way it should work if we wish to be part of BRIC?
Well, it depends, because if you raise a tariff, there's always positive and negative points. If the positive points are much bigger than the negative ones, then you may ask for a raise of a tariff. Every raise of a tariff, in my opinion, should have a day to start and a day to end, because then the industry knows that they have a oxygen for a 3-4 year agenda to make themselves competitive. Because if not, you keep protecting someone that may not be competitive at the expenses of the consumer. So it's the South African consumer paying for an industry that cannot be competitive in the future. I'm not telling that the poultry industry cannot be competitive. I think it can. It needs a plan. It needs some help from the government, being it logistics, taxes, innovation, sanitary, whatever it makes part of the agenda to be competitive. So that's the major possibility. Look at some countries that raise a barrier and never remove the barrier, like the example of sugar in the US. Sugar, the North Americans are not competitive to produce, but they keep the barrier. So what happens? Coke and all the food industries, they should buy sugar more expensive than the international market, and they send this to the final consumer. So you have the consumer paying for an industry that can't be efficient in the long term.
Now, I know it's dear to your heart and you know an awful lot about biofuels. Do you see that as being the time to move now rather than later?
It's already late. It's already late to move in. But better today than never. So, or in 5 years from now. I only see benefits when I see biofuels in a country going on. These spread money to farmers, you include people, you generate business, you reduce imports, you improve exports. So this, I come from a region that's traditional in producing biofuels.
Let me just interrupt you there, but don't you, by making biofuels out of barley, wheat, or whatever you're going to make it from, aren't you interrupting the food chain and less food is supplied by doing that?
If you have a surplus of these grains, then it's another business to the farmer.
How do you control the farmer who might get a better price for his biofuel than he does at the marketplace?
Yeah, when the government settles a biofuel policy, there's a mandate, and that mandate includes a maximum quantity. That's the percentage of the gasoline that will be added with ethanol. So the mandate is controlled by the government. So the government creates a market, but if farmers are wanting to do only biofuels and forgetting about the food, that's the mandate. So the government keeps the power of where the grain is going.
So the safety valve is, if farmer A makes too much of a product, he can only sell a percentage of that to the marketplace for biofuels.
Yeah, the Brazilian biofuel markets it's a country where you have the highest percentage of biofuel use. Is in Brazil, is in my region. That's where I come from. And in Brazil, it used to be almost 50% of the fuel consumed by the country with the small cars, not considering here the trucks and buses, the diesel engines, was ethanol. Now it reduced a little bit because the industry suffered a crisis in terms of weather, in terms of financing capacity, and it came down to 30-35, but it will increase again to 50%. So can you imagine, half of the fuel of a country is supplied by a relatively small area of sugarcane in the country.
There is a new way of producing biofuel, and that's from algae. And are you pursuing that in Brazil as well?
Yes, this is being studied all over the world. I think it came from people from California studying this. And all sources of life that we have, being the plants, whatever do we have that can pick up the energy of the sun, together with some other resources and transform in energy for us to use, all these sources are welcome. So if you have something that can generate biomass or generate whatever in a renewable way and protecting the environment, and its cost is feasible, let's put money into it because it's going to help us.
If you were able to address government at the moment in South Africa as a friend of this country, What would you be telling them to do regarding biofuels?
I think plan the volumes and start adding ethanol to the gasoline in a way that may be like 5%, then that 10%, then go increasing this because there's capacity of producing this, if not in South Africa, in neighboring countries. So you're creating a market also for you. And after that, you may also think in what's feasible for biodiesel, to produce oil to be added to the diesel that's used. So this is this should be a immediate plan because the government will win a lot, the private sector will win a lot, and the poor community will also win a lot because there's going to be more jobs for them and more money for the policies that are addressing them. I can tell you the story in Brazil is marvelous. So the story in the US is marvelous. Whatever you see, Colombia is marvelous. All countries moving in are having beautiful stories to tell. So I think it should start this afternoon.
On a final note, before I let you go, would you be available to consult with the South African government if they so wished?
That's our role as scientists, is to help to improve life in the world. All scientists is working for a better life. So we have these ideas, they're all written. I wrote a paper 2 years ago, an article telling about the benefits of biofuels for Africa, for South Africa. So it's there, so we're always available.
Marcus Fava Neves, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.